Go. Rolling.
Rolling. And is that too loud?
No, you can turn it up.
No, I think it's good, because I start hearing a lot of feedback. All right, so let's give people a chance to get settled. Might be a small group. I might be asking you to pull in, because tonight is one of those topics that that can be hard to talk about and to look at. So, and it's difficult to understand exactly how it works. Fran? So let's settle and just take that couple moments of silence just to make sure our phones are off and be in the room and set your intention for the evening. Take a deep breath. Breathe in the spirit of the divine. And release. Release any discomfort. Breathe in. And on your exhale, release any pain, any discomfort, any questions that you have. And let's set our intention for the evening. What is it that you would like to gain from this evening? How would you like to contribute? What are the questions you have that we're going to write on the board? So let's just think for a moment and everyone come together. And what I know is that there is that one presence, that one divine spirit that flows in and through everything. And it brought us all here this evening, and it'll take us home safely tonight. And I know that this is true. I know that this presence is within me, and it is here now. And I know if it's within me, it's within everyone here. And I know that that presence touches everyone that we come in contact with. And I know that tonight it will be a joyful, laughter-filled sharing of intelligent commentary on Emma Curtis Hopkins and questions that make us think and questions that help us to grow and become the people that we are meant to be. We are those people. We are the vanguard of that revolution. And I know this, I know it in my heart, and as I release this with gratitude and grace into the law, together we say, and so it is. All right. That was a nice phrase, vanguard of the revolution. I think that came from you, Sue. Yeah, say politics, yes. So tonight we're talking about remission, which in the high mysticism text, she called it remission. And then later, as we came to the book we're using, it's called remission, but negation of the unreal. But there's a few things that we're going to clean up first. David's got some handouts on deduction and induction, right, for us all so that we know about thinking. And V also has a handout of something that she felt like really helped clarify some things for her around quantum physics and science of mind in the presence of being. So our two guest speakers are going to go first.
Lovely.
Yeah.
I've struggled over the years with this thing about, is this me? This mind, this body, this is me. And then with the teachings that say, no, that's not you. These are just tools. They're just, from your body to your mind, everything is a tool so you can live in this world and communicate with people. And then this last month and a half, someone gave me a book called Everything You Wanted to Know About Quantum Physics and all that kind of stuff. So I plowed through it very slowly. because it's all a theory of how it all began. And I suddenly, it explains so clearly, according to the most advanced today's physicists, who's also, I feel their consciousness is also higher than it used to be, that everything is either energy or matter. That's good old Einstein's energy equals matter, blah, blah. But taking it a step further, if there's an observed, and that is translated to either something is a particle, which means it has mass, or it's a wave, which it doesn't. So then it said to me, okay, if someone is watching me, I'm a particle to them. But if there's no one to watch me, I'm a wave. And for some reason, it just really sunk into me in the fact that I can be both, and they're both actually the same, whether it's visible or not. And then so I was just thrilled because it helps me with the study that we're doing. And someone sent me this article on, it's a short thing on the physics, but the quantum whatever, if you want to call it, that more and more of these scientists are saying, you know, spirit, it's this quantum thing, and its spirit is real, and the soul is real, but it's either sometimes seen or not seen, form or no form. So I thought I'd like to share that.
Okay. Wow, great, thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's a great article, actually. And here's the thing, if anyone out there wants a copy of this that we talk about tonight, feel free to email me at kategrayson@gmail.com, and I'll have scanned it, and I'll be happy to send it along. Hopefully it doesn't violate copyright, now that I say
No,
that out loud.
It doesn't,
Okay.
no. This is, it's a global network thing.
Okay, no copyright issues.
No.
This is for Devon, there's no copyright issues. Okay,
Okay, so I took a little tour around Wikipedia and came up with some definitions and examples of inductive reasoning, deductive reasoning, and a comparison of the two. So I made 10 copies of each. If you don't really have computer or internet access, you're welcome to a copy. If you do and there's not enough copies, I'm happy to send you an email with that. And the other one is definitions of analogy, simile, metaphor, allegory, and onomatopoeia. And they're all various forms of analogy, but it's specific.
Yeah.
And you know, as we talked about, it's important to me. I don't know about you. But if we're using these words, I want to know exactly what I'm saying and
Right.
use them correctly. So it's here if you want it, and
that's the very handout I gave my students last week.
really.
Yeah,
Oh.
I like that word. So it's a great one, yeah. So what is it about those that got you? Because we were talking a little about metaphor last week.
Well, we touched a little bit about metaphor, and I'm not sure if we were really talking about a metaphor or an allegory.
Right.
So that
Okay.
was a little shaky.
Okay.
And then there was the whole conversation around inductive and deductive
Right.
reasoning.
No, that one's been going on. I'm glad you pulled that. So do you feel that Emma Curtis Hopkins uses allegory or metaphor or similes? Just curious.
I think they're more metaphor and allegory.
I do too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
She never is running around saying, it's just like this, or as much as that. Right, right. Okay, thank you, David. Those are really important, because how we express ourselves is important to who we are, right? And so I think that's why these things are important. And they've been discussed in academia, that to bring that kind of stuff into us so that we can be really clear about what we say, I think that there are some lines that can get crossed. I think that we can study spirituality and then articulate it well. So I think that's important. That's my opinion. I don't know how other people feel about that. But any questions before I get started and we start some good discussion? Did anyone come up with any questions about this chapter 2? Everyone understood it perfectly? Oh, yay, yes.
Well, one thing that I've been debating about, if anybody, I was a chemistry teacher back in the day, and I've got my undergrad is in chemistry, and I've got quite a bit of experience with quantum physics. So if anybody wants any other wants me to talk to them about duality and wave and particle, I'd be happy, because I've got a bunch of things that I have in my head that I've shared with students throughout the years, but I don't want to do a thing with it. So that's number one. But number two, my question is, since I've been involved with the teaching, Science of Mind, I've really internalized the importance of the law does not hear negations. The law does not hear no. I don't want any more. You speak with what you want and not with what you don't want.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a little bit confused when I was reading and Emma was talking about, there is no pain. And if there is no pain and then the law is just hearing there is pain, then how do you reconcile those two ideas?
Okay, how do we reconcile what we perceive as reality to the teaching?
How do we reconcile negation to the being taught that the law does not recognize negation statements?
Okay,
In other words, they become negative affirmations.
Right.
Right?
say what?
Well, I think what you're saying is that if the not is not recognized, it becomes a negative affirmation.
Okay,
There is evil, there is death, there is.
right.
Well, and two, for the longest time, the theory was, you say, I am not sick, I am not, and it's just fairly recently that it's been across the board that you don't do that. And, that's what I've heard.
That we just, that we
Yeah.
affirm health
Yes,
and things,
yeah.
right, right. And yet we have circumstances that are beyond our control, and I don't believe, I can't say that we're all individually at fault when we're befelled by an illness of some sort. I just, for myself, I have a difficult time going there. And, because things happen to us. So that's part of being human though, I think, right? So I think this is a good question. And I didn't write it all down, but I think that that'll be enough to remind us all. Don't you think? Was there anything else? Yes.
The line, matter is the appearance that results from our thinking that good is absent.
What page are you on?
23.
The exact same.
On page 23 and what paragraph?
It's its own paragraph about
Oh.
the middle.
It's one of the negations.
Right, matter is the appearance that results from our thinking that good is absent.
Okay.
So that means us.
Mhm. So that does, I would agree, yeah. That means our thinking creates the matter.
Right, which creates our physical being.
Right.
So if we're to believe that good is present, then there's no reason to be present in a body form. Or it couldn't be.
What couldn't be?
Our body form couldn't exist if we
did not give it presence, right? Yes. That's true.
So what does she say about, how does she respond to that?
Oh, okay, I see, I'm sorry, I was kind of like,
being,
in a way, you guys are talking about a similar thing in a way, right?
not
really?
No.
Okay. Well, who else hears the question and wants to respond? Mhm. She had her hand up and then you said something, so
I
you're next.
totally agree. And I don't know what Emma says about it, but in my contemplations, I realize that this plane of existence is this is part of our journey because we live in a plane of duality. We have light, dark, positive, negative, that.
Okay, no, I'm gonna,
Together.
we can't, we're not gonna go there within science mind, because we don't live in a duality. We don't live in a duality, because it's all
Yeah,
light.
it's it is, but it's
But
some
the
level.
perception is the duality. And that's, so in that sense, we have a perception of duality, but the reality is that there is no duality.
But it's this, it's thoughts, matter. So all things are that unified level.
Mm-hmm.
But when we bring it down, when we engage at this level of existence to hold it together,
Mm-hmm.
there's a positive and a negative. But that's just the level that we interact with. It's all one.
Okay, there is no positive and negative. There is no duality. So that's
Okay.
the first thing that Emma was saying in the first step, is that there is none of that, right? And that's what we need to come to first. If we go, because they say she wants us to repeat these phrases every Monday, right? And so, let me go to the back here. So every Monday, we say,
I am seeking my good, and my good is
Yes.
my God.
That's
because
right.
It draws, pushes, and moves me on. The good I am seeking is my God is my life. The good I am seeking is my abundant health and well-being. God is my health and well-being. The good I am seeking is my strength in all things. God is my strength. The good I am seeking is my support and supply. God is my support. God is my supply. God is the infinite resources that allow me to express the God that I am. The good I am seeking is my satisfaction and joy. God is my joy in all situations. Life is God. Truth is God. Love is God. Substance is God. Intelligence is God. Omnipresent, yet omnipotent, and the other one.
Omniscience.
Because God, my good, is omnipresent, God, my good, is omnipotent.
Omniscient.
Omniscient, thank you. God, my good, is omnipotent.
right? So if we go back to lesson 1, thank you. So if we go back to lesson 1 and we're repeating that and we believe that we are that which we speak, right? Then when we go to lesson 2, which is that period of remission or negation, then when matter comes into our lives, because we are human and it's a journey, like you were saying, that we stop and go, okay, so this is where I'm at, now what? You know, now it doesn't exist, or it exists, you know, in form as me, and I am God. So it becomes part of the God particle in that sense, which would take us back to what B is talking about with quantum physics. It's all part of it. Like Barbara says repeatedly in some of her classes, I think you've all heard this, all of us have cancer cells, right? It just is what happens with them in our own individualized bodies, because we're all individualized beings of light. And so it doesn't mean that it's one person caused it and the other one it just happened to. It happens for us all. But what we do with it, where our mindset is, can engage it more or less. Does that make sense? Which is what Emma's talking about in chapter 2.
That all makes sense, but do you want to try?
Go ahead.
Yes, so I wrote the exact same thing down. I came across this line where she essentially says, matter is the appearance that results in thinking our God is absent. I wrote a big question mark, like, no, for me, a lot of the times, matter that appears as something that I know that I participate in creating is evidence that God is present, because my good is present.
Right.
And I got really defensive inside, like matter and God can coexist in my life. I can know God and have happy matter, as I quoted that. The more I appreciate my good matter, the more I attract it. And then it reminded me of the Course in Miracles teachings that talk about the happy dream. This Course in Miracles says the same thing, that none of this is really real, but as we're living our lives in that higher state of consciousness with materiality, we can shape it. So I think it was this one little thing she said that kind of piqued us both. It probably doesn't have to be the quantum physics discussion, is simply just saying, there's times when matter is not me thinking my good is absent. I mean, I don't think all the matter that shows up in my life is evidence of the absence of good.
Right.
Great
That's
point.
good, yeah.
Okay, I think that's very articulate.
Including us.
Including us, yes.
Right.
Say that again?
Including us.
Part of
Including
that
us. Right. Anyone else like to comment on this? Because this is a different, I said that at the beginning, this is going to be one of those classes that kind of try to draw us in and help us figure it out.
I agree with you because in the paragraph before that, it's talking about the limiting laws, looking downward and focusing on loss and lack. So I really feel it's talking about the matter that you don't like, that's not to your benefit, and if you feel that it's real. Because when I read this, it was like, we say it all the time that we can change our world by our thoughts, but it never really hit until I was looking at this and going, yeah, matter isn't real. And it was like, I all of a sudden felt that if I really believed it and changed my thought, it would change like that. So, but in this one, I don't think they're really looking at the good side of matter or what you want or what puts you in that God state. It's when you get in that less than God state, looking at the loss and lack
Right.
and realizing that it's appearing because you've lost that good
Right.
thing.
Well, one thing, remember, is that these are general overviews. This is like the negation, so that when we come upon stuff, we can stop and see the God principle behind it, so to speak, if that would be accurate, and then learn how to work with it in that, right? This is just step 2, right? The first one is knowing that we are the I am and that I am God. And then she ends that chapter with those very phrases, that it doesn't, that is as well. So I'm not sure I'm helping you at all. Maybe David, I'm gonna call on David. David and Sue are well bred on Emma Curtis Hopkins.
Especially so. I think part of what is happening here is that, I'll just speak about it for where I come from myself. Ultimately, it's about having my identity primarily in the good with the capital G. I'm one with it. I'm a light being coming into form, and when I think about how God brings things into form, because it's all light, it's all this, right? It's like a filter. So in that sense, it looks like something's missing, just the way I can put a red filter over the sunshine and only see whatever color I see. I don't know. But that's the way it kind of feels to me. So I kind of get where she's going. The phrasing and everything doesn't really turn me on, but
Right.
but in the general sense, how does a light being take form? Otherwise, it always remains light, so something has to get filtered out, so to speak, or slowed down, or Barbara says collapses into form through the thought.
Right.
That's kind of where it goes, but it begins with me thinking of myself primarily as a spiritual being and not identifying myself
Right.
as this physical thing. That's the result of this being that's incarnated thousands of times and yada, 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 yada.
Right.
So that's kind of where it goes for me. So I don't know if that answers the question or not, but that's where it all goes.
You still look a bit confused or perplexed.
Well, my confusion is that she seems so adamant that all matter, and so I get all the other stuff, but as we talk about it, it's the good, it's this, but she's saying that all matter is.
A result of our thought.
Right.
And so I think that's something to look at, though. Why are we reluctant to believe that? We believe it easily enough when it's good things, right? Oh, I was treating for this and I got the car or the house or the money and the job and all of that. But then something else happens and we're like, where in my consciousness was that, right? And it doesn't mean that it's bad, it just means that maybe there is something else there. If we could look at everything as God is good and everything in my life is God representing good, then even if it appears to have that duality to it, because that's who we are based on inductive and deductive reasoning, we have this challenge before us, so to speak, to work towards that, knowing that everything is spirit.
So I don't know if it's her way of just essentially saying that if one were to know all truth, that we would cease to exist, our bodies, we would no longer be in a body.
Essentially, that we would ascend, right, at a higher
So that's
vibration.
just sort of her
Yeah,
saying that, I don't know.
but we don't have that luxury. Some people have, right? Some people have been able to gain that. We know that through our own vibration, we can lower our heart rate, we can raise our body temperature or lower it. We know that we can heal our own bodies. We've had those examples here at this center and in our own lives at different levels. So I think the challenge is, for me, is catching the thought and then processing it and then letting it go once I get there. But we'll see, maybe as we go through the rest of the evening. You were gonna say something, Rick, and you were too. Did you get to share?
No, I didn't get to share.
Okay. I'm not sure if you just jumped in.
Well, matter, I think we get, or I get, kind of confused with good and bad matter. And so, if I think of at the top of 23, where she says, all matter is delusion, built by some belief in the absence of, I'm gonna say God instead of good, because good, has such a broad meaning. But that makes more sense to me. I can know that matter is delusion, and so it's created by separation, the thought of separation from God. So that's how we can change matter, is knowing that there is no separation between there is no separation between us and God. We're all part of God. So that kind of helps me to get the matter thing straightened. I mean, it's not completely straight, because it's a very, very complex subject.
Yes.
We could talk about this for hours.
We could. Britt, thank you.
The thing that matters is an illusion. I think it's spot on. I don't think anybody can argue with it.
Okay, will you speak up a little bit for the mic and stuff, and for the room?
There's physicists in that book we're reading, with a happy pocket full of money, goes through the physics, and I love that chapter. It's something like 50 billion times a second that all matter, us, chairs, table, floor, everything, it blinks in and out of existence. 50 billion times. Our eyes aren't equipped to handle that. The antenna that we use for eyes. But the sense of matter, just what she says about good is absent. If I see anybody or anything that I would call good, just because it is, I've cloaked it in matter, or identified it as matter, it's got a beginning and an end. It's not infinite, and it certainly is not immortal. It's not eternal. So we're looking at something that is infinite in a very limited way. And we are saying to ourselves, this person or this thing is separate from everything else.
Right.
And it has no source other than it's there.
Right.
And so we're cutting it off from life. When we do that, it's just our natural state of being. It's in Christian Science terms, it's the mortal mind. It's the mortal thought.
Right. Right.
And that is exactly what we do when we identify somebody. We've got these filters, we identify them as, ooh, they're this or they're that. or, but just seeing them as a limited thing, when in truth, we are infinity.
Right.
And so we are, when we see someone, we're negating the good.
Right. And then that goes to what Laura was saying, in that we have the power to change that.
Yeah.
Right, right. And Emma Curtis says that after this, and I'm going to read the next two paragraphs, if that's okay.
What page are you on?
23, right after, right, the same page. Because the human mind sometimes feel that its good is near, and sometimes that it is far off, the material forms we experience are changeable. Even the regularity of the seasons may be seen as a resulting from this periodic habit of thought. The collective consciousness of a community believes that sometimes its good is absent, and so the region experiences cold and barrenness, and then the people feel their good is to be near and free again, and with that comes the fresh fertility of the spring. Matter, therefore, is transient and unreliable. It may be something that pleases you very much, or it may bring you darkness and great void because of loss. So matter must be illusion, but the good we are seeking must be substantial to us, as God Emmanuel is constantly present within us. I love reading Emma Curtis Hopkins out loud. So, does it seem as if matter were reality? It is nothing. The reality of being is truth or spirit. God as spirit occupies the place that matter claims to occupy. Spirit is the substance even where the stones seem to be. All life, all substance, all intelligence is spirit, for spirit is omnipresent. So bold, the second negation is that is no reality to matter, all is spirit. And when we speak this truth, the spirit rises within us in its divine substantiality, and our persistent declaration and understanding that there is no reality to matter will dissolve any material condition. And so it's a statement of belief, is really what she's saying. And the more we practice the statement of belief, which is why she insists on repetition, the easier it is for us to declare our reality. That I would just say that is Emma. And I think it's difficult. I think for me it's difficult. Even the little things, not even talking about the big things like illness or sickness, or that my car broke down, just my own kind of self-identity of what makes me think I can teach Emma Curtis Hopkins? That's what I was thinking earlier today. It's like, who am I, right? And then it was like, okay, I know who I am, right? I know who I am, like that. And it was like, no, write it, I am. And I am what? I am what? I am capable, I am intelligent, I am a strong, powerful woman. I can understand anything that comes before me because divine spirit runs through me. And so I have perfect health, perfect wellness, perfect love, perfect life. But it doesn't always appear that way. It's like the image, the appearance isn't always readily available to me, and neither is always my self-esteem or self-concept. Right? I had a really interesting question in class today, but this might be a deviation, and then not at the same time. I teach early college students, and they're 14 and 15-year-olds for one of my classes for interpersonal communication. But this class, I have 16 students, and we often get up on these tracks. And today, one little young woman sitting there all alone said, she didn't feel suicidal, she doesn't feel depressed, but she said, I just don't understand what it's all for. Why are we learning all of this? Because just one day we're going to die anyway. That might be 30 years, it might be 5 years, it might be 60 years, but we're just going to die. What difference does it make? And it was like, wow. And so we talked about that, And in my mind, my response was, hopefully it was a good response. And I said, that's a really good question. I think that's a really good question. What is it? What are we all here for? We ask that all the time. What's my divine purpose? Right? Well, why am I here? And as soon as we start learning science of mind stuff, we go, I don't have a divine purpose. What is my purpose? How does that work for me? And so I said, we don't know what your purpose in life is yet. You know, it might change. What I know is that through any difficulty that people have, whether it's abuse or alcoholism, you know, car accidents, separation of parents, all of those things that make us question our reality, is that every student in this classroom has given value to me, right? And so my purpose in life is try to be reciprocal with that. However long that takes, or whatever that means for each person, I want you and you and you and you to know that you're all of value to me. And that's important to me, that your presence is here. Otherwise, I wouldn't have your piece of value in my life. So it might take longer than that, right? But I said, you gotta remember, I'm 59. So some of the things I've been through already don't seem as important to me. But what you're going through seems really, really important. And so the value, it doesn't mean that the value is any less, right? And so we talked about that, and the students were like, wow, that's pretty cool. Like, that's pretty cool. It doesn't really matter what's happening out here. What matters is that I'm a person of value, and I'm okay, is where we went to in there. And that's kind of the same thing that we're saying here. Essentially, it's the same thing. At least that's what I thought of when I was in the class. I thought, thank God for Curtis Hopkins and Ernest Holmes, because all of a sudden I'm dealing with this 15-year-old who's questioning the validity of life. And again, I don't feel like she's suicidal. I feel like she's really saying, what is this all about? Why do I want to live to be 60 years old?
Does
Why am
Emma
I
speak
going
to
to
this?
school? Huh?
Does Emma speak directly to why we choose to incarnate? What does she say?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Does Emma Hopkins speak to this, why do we choose to incarnate?
Do you know, I don't know if she speaks to that question directly. Do you know?
I'm trying to remember.
You might want to repeat the question for the audience.
Oh, I'm sorry. I believe that you asked, does Emma Curtis Hopkins speak to that question directly of being incarnate or reincarnate?
Why would we choose to?
Why do you choose
Why
to be here?
we want to?
I actually haven't seen her
I don't
refer
know.
to the whole aspect of us choosing to incarnate, having the choice from another realm of spirit. And I have not seen her speak about, I have not read about her speaking about reincarnation in the way that we think of reincarnation.
Right.
But this, this student who questioned, I've had this conversation with my granddaughter many times, and I've come to the conclusion that it's not gonna go anywhere. It's not gonna be satisfying to her, because when I was that age, I felt the same way. And I wasn't suicidal, but I'm like, what's it all for? Why am I even doing my homework, you know?
Right.
I remember standing there in front of teachers, you
Right.
know? Why am I doing anything?
Yeah.
And some of what you read in some of the New Thought, if you take it out of context, is not very helpful to that line of thinking. When you speak about all that's going on, it's an illusion, it's not real. So it kind of feeds on the then what for? Why
Right.
do I even get up out of a bed that's not real?
Right.
And go outdoors, which is not real.
Right.
So I mean, you can go to all kinds of places with that, seriously.
I know.
So, you know, for me, just bringing it back to real and not real, or good and God, or good and bad, when I see her, when I read her speaking of good, I have to substitute the word God, and then it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's good, which implies that there's a bad. When I look at matter, what you said made sense a few minutes ago. Matter, it's not good and bad matter, matter is matter.
Mm-hmm.
So matter is an illusion. It's an illusion no matter how you perceive it, as pain or joy. You know, or pain or joy would be more in the spiritual realm, but, you know, as, you know, something,
I'm sorry. Sensation.
sensation, right? So, I'm losing my train of thought again. Oh, now I know how Blair felt on stage. So, there is no good or bad. It's just what it is.
Right.
So, when I think of matter, you know, something like what you said, Dakota, the realm that I'm living in, called perception, in my perception, I am in this body, which I think is a total miracle. I know it's matter, but it is a most incredible thing. So in that way, I don't see a separation from matter and spirit when I think of the human body.
Right.
If I've chosen to incarnate, this is going to purpose, why we're here. I've chosen them, or God has chosen with me, to enter this physical body, which is matter. I mean, why even come up with that in the first place, if none of it is real? And function with a lot of other matter on a particular planet, whatever. And, you know, it's almost like it goes to, like paradox, because what David said is true. The reality with the capital R is what we are, divine identity.
Right.
That is not a matter, that is not finite, that's forever, that's eternal. And that is what I am. However, I'm functioning here because of some decision that was made from spirit or whatever, and I am with people and with matter, and so on that level, my perception is that matter is real. So give it a small r,
Right.
but it's still there. I can't say that matter is not real. And she may be meaning something else when she says that, and I'm not criticizing her, but the way it lands in me, it's all real, and it's all God. So if it's all God, then matter is God, then everything is God, everything we could think of, everything that we're capable of perceiving is God.
Right.
So it is real in that sense.
Okay. I think that's very articulate. I do. Did you have your hand up too, Lauren?
Well,
And then B.
can it be in the realm of matter? It's not real in the sense that it can change, and we can change it. You can make it as real as you want it to be, and then change it. I mean, I spent many, many years looking for a purpose till I read or heard someplace that I get to make it up. And once I could make it up, I haven't finished, but it released some of that pressure of thinking, well, I've wasted my whole life because I haven't found my purpose.
Well, and it could change too.
Yeah, but it had nothing. It was just going about doing what everybody does, following the collective rules and not liking it, and then realizing, well, there is no reason to be here other than to whatever you choose it to be. That's how I like to look at it, so that all this can be solid while I need it, and then if I want something different, it can change. And maybe part of coming in here is to play this game of this is reality, and then eventually learn that I can make it change like that and have a new reality.
Okay. And then Jill.
I've struggled with this all my life, that since I started, because my mother shoved me into Christian Science and et cetera, so I've gone through so many religions. But it's, for me, it boils down to, am I looking at whatever I'm looking at from the level of the absolute or from the relative? And they're both totally different. One is spirit, and the other one is what I'm going to call matter. But it's the same. But if I'm coming from a limited knowledge, from the senses, from that, I'm going to see things in a limited way.
Right.
But if I come from the absolute, which I think Emma is really pushing, you have to, it's almost like a leap of faith. And there's the mystery. because we really are, I really am spirit. I really am perfect and all those things. But with this limited tools that I have, I can't grasp it all of the time. I can only grasp it when I'm inspired, or I'm in class, or I see a gorgeous sunset. And so I go forward with faith, but there's one that I really like here, which really blew my mind last week. Sensation is sight, hearing, tasting, smelling, touching, which are essentially mental faculties, non-material in nature.
Mhm.
That made me stop solid and say, okay. And then I remembered from going back to what you talked, this Upanishads, there is spirit, the Om, or whatever you perceive as being the thing of the universe. That is the I, that is your I.
Right.
And your senses, every one of these, spirit, God is your sight. God is your hearing. Spirit is your hearing. Spirit is your skill in every faculty. And nothing, nor can any of the five senses bring you anything but good. So that's reasoning from the absolute. Maybe that's the difference between inductive and deductive, whether you're reasoning from the absolute or from the relative. You think?
Yes.
Okay, that just came to me.
That's why we're talking about all this. That's great. Joe?
I
That
was
was
just,
good.
all this talking and stuff, and actually it bounces right off what you were just saying. One of the things that I read it somewhere, but we are the universe experiencing itself.
Mhm.
We are the point, the focal point of just, yeah, and that's something that I remind myself all the time, you know, that we are the universe experiencing itself.
Okay. Anyone else like to chime in? Still questioning over there. I can see your eyes. No, something
No,
isn't good.
it's just for me trying to frame Emma's way of speaking into, because it all
Right.
makes sense to me and I got it all, but when I read what she says, it kind of gives it a shift, but then when I think back of what she really means and what she's saying, it all makes sense.
Right. And we have to keep into mind the language of the time and where she was coming from and what she was dealing with herself and who she was. She didn't, you know, from all accounts of things I've been listening to and stuff, she wasn't a very open woman. She doesn't feel like she was very open, but she was very driven. And so, and I don't know what I mean by open, just kind of like this warm, you know, come on in type of thing. You know, just given what Ernest said about her, was like, no one really studied with Emma. She told you what to do and you either did it or not. And so it's that kind of thing. You're right, she's absolute in her faith. But we studied her because she's a teacher of our teachers, and hopefully to understand even more deeply than what we do right now. That's why I study people. That's why I love teaching Troward and the mystics and Hopkins and stuff. Because I like to go, like that with them.
What I'm enjoying doing is I'll read this book, and then I'll read the
High mysticism?
the same chapters. And to me, it's giving me, it expands everything.
Right,
Right. At a much deeper level.
right. And it changes slightly, right? Again, I think this was someone's dissertation that just got picked up and used over and over, and I think it's good that scientific Christian mental practice says about remission and negation. God has no opposite. Turn from duality. Kless lessons from 1988 that's about goodness, around clarity, says to follow the truth, deny 5 false race beliefs. Deny 5 false race beliefs to have clarity in your own faith. And so in Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes talks about race consciousness, which I'm getting the feeling that maybe he got a little bit from this. 5 race beliefs that race consciousness holds, right? And it, you know, I think we all could come up with 5 different ones, and I don't even want to start suggesting them. But on a superficial level, there's like these kind of stereotypical race beliefs, race conscious beliefs that say, you know, people with red cars get more speeding tickets, right? And so we believe these kind of truths as real when in fact they're fallacies. You know, speeding cars get more speeding tickets, and that's the truth. Do red cars get more tickets? You know, I don't really know. It's nothing I've ever researched. But I've had red cars and I don't get speeding tickets. I've had white cars and I've gotten a lot of them. And so far I haven't gotten one in a silver car, so I feel very blessed. Thank you. My good is my God, yes. Yeah, you said you had your hand up.
Yes. I read Holmes and some of the books we had in class, Monday night class last year, Words Don't Teach, and talking about the purpose why we're here. If we don't engage in experience here, we're never going to know who we are and expand the universe, which goes along. We are that.
Right.
And we're here for that, for the expansion, and we're not what we were whenever the first idea was to come here.
Right.
We don't even want to talk about those days because we're so far away from that, and we're going faster than ever before. But that is why we're here. But I just wanted to throw in there that I spent a lot of time thinking I moved here to this mountain. Whoever was here, the last class I was here, heard me crying and so forth. I am here and I cannot join life for my purpose. I feel, and I spent so many months, maybe a couple of years, that this came. Whoever knows what this means. And I have gone to places that I would have never gone. So I got what your student was asking, you know, why are we here and all that. That's what I was. I was stuck there. But I cannot be me. I cannot do the things, you know, the things that I enjoy, what I'm here for. I know what I'm here for. But I beat it so much. And I do know that I'm responsible for it in that way. But the other side of that is it has taken me places that I would have never gone without it. But it's for expansion.
Right.
And it's for experiences. And unless we have that experience with each other, we're never going to know about the oneness, the unity, that we're just one anyways, and it's just God good.
Exactly. And I think you said it better. I wish you'd been in my class today, but that's what I was trying to get across to my student, was this kind of like, we don't know what you're here for, but you have value in whatever that is, you know, at this point in your life. We all have value. And that's looking, because we're all God, right? And I didn't say that to them because I don't bring it in that way. But I'm looking at them going, these are just like little beings of light gods, you know? How exciting. They're in such development, and they're going to take our life further and further than we've ever dreamed in this moment right now. And they're amazing young people, really, really. I was not anything like them when I was their age. And they're amazing. Already they have this base of spirituality and awareness that surpasses mine sometimes in the classroom. It's amazing, really.
Our experiences are expanding them. The ones from Holmes, they say they're this now. So
right.
They're going to be getting brighter and brighter and brighter, like you're saying.
Yeah.
But we have to engage.
Yeah. They ask me questions that I'm like there's this whole discussion going on right now about the lesbian, gay, trans, bigender plus groups, right? LBGT plus, that's the new phrase right now. And so, but the language that these young people are using, they've created a whole new conversation that I had not experienced until just a few months ago. And it's all on a non-binary, on a binary system. And so there are many young people choosing to be non-binary at this point. And it's like, what does that mean to you? And there's like this kind of identification that's been forced on them. They just don't want it. And it's up a step, it's up a level from where I was. I didn't want it either, but they're more aware than I ever I ever was. And by the time they're 59, I've said, you guys, you're the ones ruling the world. You're the ones that are gonna change it. You're the ones that are gonna change it from the racism, from the homophobia, from the heterosexism, from the war. It's you, it's this population that's going to be determining our lives as we get older. And I'm just like, I'm so grateful because they're so empowered already. Yeah.
And does it really need changing?
Yeah.
It occurred to me when you were talking, because it's gonna start over. I mean, it's gonna be experiences going on no matter what. So
Right.
do we really need to change anything, or?
Right, but we start that here. The only way that we can empower them is by becoming empowered ourselves.
Mhm.
And the only way we can become empowered is to learn our history, right? I believe that. I believe we have to know our history. So if you have had a life of, Emma talks about this, of despair and drudgery and just pain and sorrow and you know, mishap to mishap, then stop it. Stop it right now. Change it. Change your life, change your thinking, change how you talk about your life. I was telling someone really, really recently from this center, and they were telling me something, and I was like, you need to stop, because how many times have you told this story? And they said, I don't know, I'm still dealing with it. And I said, well, you're done now. You're done now. And I think I've been influenced by Barbara Waterhouse, but I said, my new thing is, for me, is I can tell my story 3 times. One, when it happens, I go, oh my God, do you know what happened? Oh, this happened to me. And then I can tell it again to someone, do you know what happened to me? This happened to me. And it changes tone right there. And the 3rd time I tell it, I'm like gossiping about myself. And I caught myself gossiping recently, and I have been like berating myself ever since. And it's like, no, this was a good lesson for me, because I don't want to bring that stuff into my life. I want a good, happy life. And so I'm done with those stories. That was the last time. That might have been the 9th time I said that particular story, but now it's done.
So you're only talking about telling negative stories 3 times?
No, all stories.
Well, because wouldn't you want good ones to repeat?
They do repeat in a different way. All stories. Because if you try to hang on to that memory, and she actually talks about that, how we have to acknowledge it and move forward, is that if we try to hang on to even the remnants of this wonderful good memory and we tell the story again, we start losing it. We can never recreate the circumstance. That's something about communication studies, right? It's irretrievable, it's unrepeatable, and you can never reconstruct it. And so it's like, oh, once you say it, it's out there and gone. And the more we try to hold on to it, the more we change it. That's why police have such a hard time with definitive descriptions. They say, what did you see? And then a week later, they bring you in and ask you again, what did you see? And by then, it's changed. You've changed your story. So every time we tell a story, we change it. The next time I might talk about this 15-year-old student, which today was only the 2nd time, it would change. And it would lose the magic that it had in that moment. And so I think we have to keep being new and recreating it and stepping beyond it. Positive and negative is still matter. Yeah, Cheryl.
So isn't it even whether it's a good story or a bad story, every time you're in the story, you're focusing on something that's in the past.
Exactly.
Versus being present to the now, because you're all about what occurred previously.
Exactly. That's a perfect way to end this and take a break and eat some of that coffee cake that was from the past. It's going to create a good memory. I have to admit that we got way off track with what I prepped. But I often let the classes take the course. But if people are good, can we move forward a little bit?
Sure.
Yes. Okay. So Emma says, geez, I want to get rid of this just a minute.
Can I say something about negation?
You can.
You know, John and Barbara don't teach using denial or negation in our spiritual mind treatments. They just don't teach that.
Right.
So, this whole chapter is on denial or negation. And so I was reading this part about that Bea mentioned about your senses, where she said, God is my hearing, therefore I cannot lose my hearing. And I'm reading that and I'm thinking, that's a denial or a negation that I could use. I could buy into that. I could really buy into that. So, and there was another one. I mean, there's always exceptions, I think, to rules, but there's another one that Barbara gave us several years ago, and it's, I don't catch colds from other people. And that's a negative, saying I don't. But I don't know how to say it any differently, but I've used it for several years, and it's worked for me. So I'm like, okay, if it works, what's the problem if it works?
Right.
So that's just what I want to say.
Well, that, I think that gets back to Mike's question about reconciling negation.
Right. Does it? You do. Yeah.
Well, part of, Breezy kind of spoke to that, saying that the focusing on the positive and what you want is a more recent trend in our spiritual community. So then it would make complete and utter sense that if that's not the thoughts of the time, then it wouldn't be reflected in the writings of the time.
Right, right. And then you're right as well. The more current teaching in Science of Mind says we don't use negation as part of our treatment process. And that we stay focused on the positive, on the good, and all of that. Sometimes you can't get to the good, I think, unless you, pardon?
You can't get there until you've told yourself what isn't true.
Exactly.
To know what is for yourself.
Exactly. So it's that concept of how we can turn away from the condition, but we can't ignore that it's there, right, until we deal with it. And so we deal with it, and then we can let it go, which is a different thing. But how much do we focus on it in order to get to the other side is the 3-story rule in my life now.
Yeah. So it's, like another way of saying that would be, I am always healthy.
Right.
But, oh, God. Do you know nothing?
So in the last class, Happy Pocket Full of Money, when the book started getting into negations, what Barbara said was, okay, so she acknowledged we don't usually teach negations, but you can see where it's useful. And her suggestion, recommendation is make the negation if you have to.
Right.
And then follow immediately with the affirmation of what is.
Right.
So, whatever that is, I don't catch colds from people. My health is the health of life, period. So you follow
Right.
it and do that.
Exactly that. And I think that's what Emma means when she talks about remission. Do you remember? And then we'll go back to the end of the table.
Yeah, I think it came from Barbara, actually. So it's not about the words and what you write, it's about what you're feeling and what you're putting out there on a feeling, vibration thing to catch on to the universal mind and so on and so on. So if you're saying, I am not sick, using the word sick, I do not catch colds, you're saying the word do not. But if your feeling is around health, you're going to be bringing health. And you could say, I am always healthy, but be thinking sick, and it won't work. So it's more about what you're putting out in the intent, the feeling that's going to catch on.
Right. And Emma says it's the repetition that keeps us at a higher level into the awareness. Yeah.
For me, the negation, when I catch myself doing it, what I realize is, like, instead of saying, oh, I'm in perfect health, the negation is usually much more specific, and sometimes I need it, I need it to get down to that level to realize why I don't have perfect health.
Right.
So saying I don't catch colds from other people is very different than saying I have perfect health, because somewhere in my mind, I think I get colds from other people. And so when I take it down to that point, then I can go, oh, well, that's silly, and then can go make the next step.
Right. I agree. And Emma says, actually, it's up to you to choose whether to make your God either the highest principle that you can comprehend or the incidents and happening of your everyday life. There's an uplifting strength in acknowledging that my good is life, my good is truth, and that it doesn't come from my experiences. Isn't that interesting? I like that. And that we can use that. That's not in the books, it's in this manual I have. Because I see people flipping through trying to find the words. It's not in there. It might be then, now that I say that, but I don't know so. So anyway, she says that. All right, so where would people like to go? Are you good with negation? I know where I want to go. I want to go here. I want you to really think about the thing that's like bugging you, that's, just bugging the hell out of you. It might be health, it might be wealth, it might be, your car, it might be the person down the street. Really, let's focus on them for a second, or that moment, or that issue. Let's just take a second. I'm not going to let you focus on it real long. I'm not even going to let you tell your story around it, right? I'm going to ask you to volunteer a positive negation. Now, I know it sounds contradictory in terms, but that's exactly what Emma says. Name the 5 negations and then say 2 more. And so let's practice that together. Ready?
I just need an example to know.
I know, and then you'll be good. I know, that's why I looked at you first. You're not going first.
Good.
Because you're going to get an example and some explanation, and that's a good thing. Because I think your questions help clarify it for a lot of people, so I appreciate that. So but is everyone clear where I'm going? Yes, so you had a question, or you want to volunteer?
I'm volunteering.
Oh, yeah,
There is no judgment.
good. Something you're dealing with that you're going to express a negation.
There is no poverty.
Good.
There's nothing to fear.
Excellent. True.
Nothing can diminish my satisfaction in life.
Is that one in book? You looked down like you were reading it.
It's my notes I made to myself.
Oh, wow, that's really powerful. Nothing can diminish my satisfaction in life.
How do you follow that?
Did someone say something?
How do you follow that? That's awesome.
Oh, with your own. Yeah.
There is no pain.
There's no separation.
There's no frustration. There is no illness.
Thank you.
There is no confusion.
There is no lack.
There is no lack. There are no obstacles in my path.
There is no failure. There is no failure.
There is no failure.
There is no doubt.
There is no doubt.
There are no limits.
Mm.
There is no have to.
There's no have to.
There is no problem.
So are you clear what we're doing now?
Yeah, in my head, I automatically flip to the other, so I have a hard time coming up with a negative one.
Okay, because you've been taught.
Yeah.
But now we're learning Hopkins, so feel free to jump back. Anyone else?
There is no other.
There is no other.
I don't know if this is a negation, but there is no idle thought. This is from the course, but.
There is no
Idle thought.
no idle
Everything-
thought.
Right, so it borders in negation, but it also says what it is in
Right.
the second sentence. But
I think that's powerful. There is
It
no
is
idle
powerful,
thought,
yeah.
actually. Yeah, it makes me think of thought in another way, right
Mhm,
away.
right.
Yeah. Okay, so even if you didn't share a negation, I'm gonna ask everyone to do this next part. Just jump right in there. And you've been in my classes before, you know what we're gonna do. We're gonna do the I am. And after you say the I am, the rest of us are going to say, yes, you are, together, right? You know this too. It's cool, isn't it? It's a lot of fun. Huh?
It's powerful.
It is powerful.
Yeah.
So, let's get ready, because this is good stuff, isn't it? You've been in the classes, yeah. So, who would like to start?
I am joy.
Yes, you are!
I am happiness.
Yes, you are!
I am powerful.
Yes, you are!
I am safe.
Yes, you are!
I'm health.
Yes, you are!
I am happy.
Yes, you are!
I am free.
Yes, you are!
I am joy.
Yes, you are!
I am steadfastly keeping the high watch.
Yes, you are! Yeah.
I am vital.
Yes, you are! Yeah.
I am whole, perfect, and complete.
Yes, you are!
I'm clarity.
Yes, you are!
I am clear and powerful.
Yes, you are!
I am the power of my Holy Spirit.
Yes, you are!
I am.
Yes, you are! Yes.
I am God's stuff.
Yes, you are!
I'm abundance.
Yes, you are! Yes.
I'm fit, healthy, and wealthy.
Yes, you are! I am wise and generous. Yes, you are! Is that everyone? I think, no?
No.
She pointed you, she named you.
Drop the dime. I am perfect health.
Yes, you are! And then what do we say? And so it is! Yeah. So I love that, because, you know, we've had this round and round discussion about what is negation, and how do we deal with it, and what does this mean, and how do we, you know, and that's exactly what you do. That is it, right there. Each one of us recognized that, but said the opposite, even if we didn't say a negation of our own lives. And so that's, I think, all she's asking for. I think it's that simple. Even though there's a whole chapter on it, and Holmes focuses on it, and it's this and it's that, the truth is, it's just that simple. You recognize it within you, claim it is not, and then follow it with the affirmation. Yeah, that's what I think. Yes?
Well, I also want to say, and then followed by having it affirmed by your community in a very solid and meaningful way is one of the, really steps up the power for me of the activity.
Yeah, I think so too, because it's all one mind, and when we bring the mass consciousness to it, which is race consciousness, right, then it changes things.
A lot more energy.
Right.
A lot more energy.
Right. We think of, I remember thinking of race consciousness only as the bad things that happen. Oh, race consciousness is poverty, race consciousness is, you know, the illusion of cancer, race consciousness is this, but the truth is, this is race consciousness. And this, so instead of looking at race consciousness as only those things, I look at it as the negating affirmation. Which I love the language, because it seems contradictory, but again, there's no opposites, right? There's no duality, there only is. And so we can use the language the way it was meant to be used, which is, we've changed it from the way they used it during those times.
Race consciousness is a term that's confused me and kind of bothered me since I've been coming here. Because the old word, the race, I mean, what race connotes now is not, did he mean mass consciousness? Is that what he said?
Yes.
That's a term I would drop, because I think that almost hones it down to at least newcomers coming into this going, well, which race are you talking about? And, you know, what does this have to do with versus
The human
Right.
the recognition?
He's talking about the human race.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just not a term that people use a lot.
No, but what it can do, if we investigate it, is help us step away from the issues of race and gender and identity and look at the whole, right? That's because that was my issue with it as well. So it still can be when we just say it, right? Yeah. But do what you're comfortable with.
Well, officially going off topic, I mean, same topic, but when I thought, I believed that when Ernest was talking about race consciousness, he was talking about globally the human race, but I thought in the original Science of Mind text, unless I'm mistaken, he was also talking about race consciousness being like my maleness, my whiteness, my family, like all of those things being subsets of race consciousness. So is it just the human race, or is that just the biggest subset of all the different race consciousnesses that he was talking about?
If I understand what you're stating correctly, that I think that Ernest would say racism is race consciousness, that homophobia is part of race consciousness, that it is all of the isms, but it's poverty, it's everything else. It's all of the stuff that we deal with in our world that is on a mass level, that he would say that's race consciousness. That's how I understand it. Someone else can enlighten us.
It's not just the bad stuff either.
No,
It's all the
it's not.
things that we've agreed to
As
on
well.
a higher level that everybody's dealing with until we change our minds.
That's right, that's what I was saying. This too is race consciousness. As we change that as we go forward in the world, but I think it's all of that is race consciousness, and it's all supported. So if you want to look at race consciousness as patriarchy, and if you want to look at it as white privilege, yes, it's all of those things. Because it's all been agreed on some level. And we can change that. That's who we are. That's why we're here. Right? And that's why the young ones are coming up after us into a world that's going to be more open for them.
That's why we're here.
Pardon?
You just touched on something we talked about earlier, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
So for you, we're here to make change.
My divine purpose, and when I first, that would be it. Mine is, and I struggled with this. I was in an exercise workshop with John, and he was like doing, let's do our divine purpose. And I cried and cried and cried, couldn't come up with it. And I prayed about it, and I cried, and I talked to John, and I talked to Barbara, and I talked to people more than 3 times. And I remember that when someone just said, well, just let it go. Just ask what your divine purpose is. What do you do already? What do you love? And I was like, well, I like teaching. And I was like, oh. And I realized my divine purpose is to plant and facilitate seeds of understanding and interconnectedness. And I don't even know where that phrase came from. And then I shared it with someone. I shared it with my mentor, actually, and he changed it. And I was like, no, I can't change my divine purpose. And then someone else tried to reword it too, and I was like, no, I like it like this. This is what it says to me. That whatever the language means to you is your issue, right? You could do your own divine purpose. This one's not. And so I plant and facilitate seeds of understanding and interconnectedness. And I have that on the wall in my house. And I look at it sometimes and I think, yes, I do, right? And sometimes I look at it and go, me? How do I do that? But I know that's what I'm here for. My whole life has been this. It was freeing, honestly. So to change the world, maybe I guess that's the ultimate resolution, isn't it?
Maybe just to be in the world.
Or just to be.
Yes.
That's the question about this. And I talked about John with this. How do you be in the world but not of the world? Or is it of the world or not in the world? Which one is it?
In the world.
Be in the world but not of the world. And I think that goes to this chapter. How do we be in the world but not bound by the rules and the laws of it? And I'm not talking about, you know what I'm talking about.
Well, it's built around preferences, isn't it?
I think.
You have very strong preferences, you're going to be in the world.
Okay.
If your preferences, it doesn't matter who wins the election, say, in your mind, and you're not of that part of the world. You're just observing.
Okay. I think that's good. Does anybody else want to respond to that? Because I think that is exactly what this chapter is about, in my mind anyway. And I had written that down when as part of the lesson. So we're on that. Because we kind of skipped over many things I thought we should talk about.
She draws on a lot of religions. I'm getting actually more out of reading this book.
High mysticism.
And I experienced it as having been written by somebody who's writing it in an altered state to start with. She's a mystic and she's writing it from that mystical place. But I don't hear anything in her, what I've read so far and what we've read, about it's our job to go fix the world. And there's some teachings that say the world is just perfect the way it is. It's just because it doesn't look that way to you. That's all part of the illusion, which I was just talking to Robert about, how being in this physical world, how hard it is to accept that as a premise, to see suffering, to see things and accept them and rise above them or look the other way so I can stay spiritual, But this is a whole other we take 2 more hours to even discuss all of that. Just that she amazes me, and you mentioned this too, the references that she has to all kinds of different religions, all parts of the Bible, characters, relatively obscure characters, and weaves them together in this mystical state.
Right.
So I don't even get to the place of saying, I know like when I speak about my own personal mission, where I want to do good and the good that I want to give, Robert and I were in a spiritual psychology program, and one of the premises was the earth is a school. The purpose of the school is to graduate, not to change the school. Food for thought.
Mhm. That's a really good point right there. Yeah, Laura.
But how can we not impact the world and change the world? Because we all have a different perspective of everything, and those thoughts go into it and impact other people that may agree with you or disagree. Whether we do it on purpose or not, we all change the world. We all bring a new insight to anything that we endeavor. So we may not stand out there and go, I'm here to change the world, but in every instance, we do it.
Well,
That's right.
like they say, the only constant is change.
In this world.
It's the only constant,
Right.
yeah, in this
And it's
world.
all an illusion, so
Right.
there's no change.
We were going somewhere with that. We were all levitating up to mysticism, but no, now we know we're all an illusion. So, on Mondays, read number 1, chapter 1, and those 6 or 7 affirmations. And they say, on Tuesday now, you say, there is no evil. There is no reality to matter. It is illusion formed by belief and absence. There is no absence of life, substance, or intelligence anywhere. There is nothing hurtful. There is no sin, sickness, or death. And then find 2 more for yourself and keep working on these. She says that we can only go forward by building on the premises. And so remember, it's Hopkins. So we've taken 1, God is everything. The things that, that still kind of like stick us, we're working through on negation, right? There are no sticky things. And there is only life and health, there is only free flowing, there's only free form. So those kind of things. Keep working on that over the week and start reading lesson 3. And forgiveness. Forgiveness is another one that we'll probably spend a lot of time just discussing. So I hope this discussion was helpful. And remember that it's the first 6 lessons are all about us, our insides and who we are. And it's the next 6 that take us out into that mystic world where hopefully we'll be out as healers and where we actually do create change. Any questions about where we're at, where we're going? If there's any suggestions, please feel free to let me know and talk to me. Call me if you have anything you want to add to the class. Feel free, we can do that. And does anyone have any questions before we end today? Everyone feel good? You're good as your guy? Statements? You want to add anything? Anything? You're good?
It's all good.
It's all good. And what I know is that as we go forward and we present the offering, that the offering, it comes from our hearts and from the joy and the wisdom that we've shared here today. And that all of it goes out, and it goes to support the center, and it goes to support our ministers, and it goes to support the land that we're on, and the buildings, and that everything that happens here goes out into the world and does create change and creates experiences for others as we interact with them. And I feel so blessed and so grateful that this is so. And so it is.
And so it is.
And Selena's accepted to do the closing treatment for us tonight.
And what I know is there's only one life, one power, one infinite intelligence, one love, one source. This one is all joy, peace, happiness, abundance, perfect health. I know that each one of us is an individualized expression of this one. We are all expressions of the divine. And I am so grateful for this time that we have had together. I'm so grateful that we can explore truth and we can grow and learn. I'm so grateful for this center, and I know that it flourishes and has more than enough money to do the things that it wants to do. I'm so grateful for the teachers, the great teachers who have come before us, such as Curtis Hopkins. And I'm so grateful for our own teacher, Dr. Kate. I'm so grateful for each person who comes here and contributes their energy to this space. And I know as we go forward into our lives, we shine our lights a little brighter. And I release my word into the living, loving law of mind. And together we say,
And so it is.